Okay, so we are going to talk about the scaling of the memory technology, and we will use DRAM as an example. So DRAM scaling also follows this kind of Moore's law exponentially. This is DRAM's feature size, and we call it half pitch. This is the minimal dimension of the DRAM technology, and this is like a feature size of the technology. And from the 1960s, like 10 micrometer scale, to today's 2020, the DRAM technology is about 14 nanometer load today for the DRAM. And this is a really exponential decrease of the dimension. And you know the DRAM was invented by whom? We talked about that in the previous slide. It was invented by that Bob Dennard, who proposed the standard scaling rule with IBM fellow. So you see that over the past 50 years, DRAM scales exponentially. As a result, the DRAM price, let's say the cost per bit, will reduce. Or in other words, with $1, you can buy exponentially more bits. So here is the bits per dollar at production level. So you can see that this is exponential growth. And today you can use $1 and buy a gigabyte memory. So if you buy this memory, you can use $1 per gigabyte. So this is impressive in terms of the technology scaling. So if you see the DRAM scaling and logic scaling, this is what we talked about in the previous lecture 15. Both of them follow this exponential scaling rule, like the Moore's law. And this is good for both DRAM and logic for your processor. However, the DRAM scaling does not really increase the speed. We have seen the lecture 15. As you scale the technology, if you follow that Dennard scaling rule, you see that the clock frequency increases. And that means your throughput of computation increases. The DRAM scaling does improve the access time a little bit, but the improvement is not as fast as the logic. So as a result, there is a increasing gap between the processor performance and the memory performance. So this is a chart, I think, from the textbook Hennessy and computer architecture book, very famous book. So this is normalized the performance of the processor, this one, versus the DRAM. So with the scaling, you can see that the performance gap is becoming larger and larger. So that's why today's performance of the system highly depends on this gap. So this gap is called memory wall problem in the computer architecture. So that means the processor can do a lot of computation very fast, but you cannot fit in the data with adequate through a bandwidth. So processor have to wait for the data to come in. So this will limit the system performance. Let's give you a concrete example. So in the 1980s, this processor clock frequency is 10 megahertz. At that time, the DRAM memory access time is 1.2 microseconds. And 2016, we know that the clock frequency has been pushed to 3.6 gigahertz. Actually, it's saturated. After 2005, we talked about that before. And the DRAM access latency also improves to 40 nanoseconds. And as you will see that the DRAM access latency also saturates. But you see the ratio here. So 10 megahertz to 3.6 gigahertz, you increase this by 360 times. But the DRAM access latency only reduced from this 1.2 to 40, that is 30x. So you see the difference here, your logic outpaces the DRAM. So that's why you have this increasing gap here. So this will be the bottleneck of the system, especially in today's workloads like the machine learning, deep learning, where the data is very intensive. Then this kind of bottleneck is a problem. And we have talked about, I think, in one of the guest lecture, in the previous guest lecture, there is a trend in the research community try to merge the computation into the processor. So this is to eliminate this memory wall problem in the system. Okay, so here, any questions?